Welcome everybody, this is Niclas Huschenbeth and today I would like to analyze a beautiful game played in the Sinquefield Cup round number 4 between Wesley and Levon Aronian. By the way, this is my first video in my new dorm at my college, so I hope you enjoy the beautiful scenery behind me. And then let's get started. So, I always make this mistake. Whenever I analyze a game from Wesley, I always start a sentence with so. Wesley began the game with 1d4 and we have a nymph to Indian. Aronian chose the nymph to Indian and so is going for a very double-edged line for f3. c5. So here we see it kind of transposed to Benoni-like structures. White pushes, plays d5, castle, e4, and white has succeeded what he was attempting with f3. He wanted to build a strong center, but on the other hand he has lost a lot of time by playing first f3, now e4, and he's behind in development, and that's exactly what black wants to exploit at this point. In fact, in my video series about an Indian, I recommend to move b5 here, which is really aggressive. But black doesn't have to play this way. The calm move d6, of course, is also fine. Black has many options actually. Knight e2. So we have the Benoni structure, but the main difference is the bishop. The bishop is on b4 and not on g7. So we'll see how this turns out. a6. This is very typical. Black wants to play b5, even sacrifice a pawn just to open up the position in the center to attack this pawn here on d5. So typical response a4 to prevent that, and now bishop a5. And you might wonder, what's the plan behind bishop a5? The point is that now black's actually able again to play b5, or he at least has this option. If black immediately plays b5, then of course white is taking with the a pawn and black cannot take back because the rook is hanging. But with the bishop on a5, this is not the case, so in fact black is able to play b5 again. Now, bishop d2, this might be the first inaccuracy. Maybe it would have been better to just play knight g3 to finish the development on the king side. If now b5, it's best for white to just let it be as it is and play bishop e2. If white takes on b5, then again black takes on d5 and queen b6, and you have the king still in the center, and black is even playing c4, preventing castling. Very uncomfortable. You don't really want to do this as white. So instead, just play bishop e2, and well, black can play b4, but the knight goes back to b1, and the position is roughly balanced. Instead, so played bishop d2, e takes d5, c takes d5, and now knight h5. And the point is to kind of hinder the white development. Not kind of, to hinder the white development. For example, after knight g3, now black could play queen h4, and that would be quite annoying in fact. So, I did it again. So I had to find another way to develop his king side, and he played g3 in order to develop the bishop not to e2 but to g2. Knight d7, bishop g2, and now finally we see this standard push on the queen side, b5, trying to open up the position. And now so played g4, and I think this is too risky, too dangerous. He should have just castled. The natural move castle here would have been the right choice. And after b4, drop back with the knight to b1. Let's say bishop c7. Bishop is not doing anything on a5 anymore. So bishop c7. Not doing much on c7 either, but at least preparing a5 and bishop h6. And now, for example, bishop e3, knight e5, knight d2. Just made some natural moves here. Now a5, bishop a6 coming. Still a very complex position, but chances are even here. So let's go back and see what happened. So played g4. And here Aronian pretty much made his only inaccuracy in the game, I believe. Or maybe you could call one other move an inaccuracy, but later it really doesn't matter that much anymore. Here he played b4, but he should give the check first to limit white's options. So here white has to play king of 1, knight g3, and that would be just taken by the knight on h5. So king of 1 is forced, and now b4, and I would pretty much transpose to the position we'll see in the game after knight b1. Instead, Aronian played b4 immediately, and here Wesley played knight b1, but instead he should have taken on h5. Because now after queen h4 check, he can play knight g3 and this is the difference, and this is of course much better than to be forced to play king of 1 and to not be able to castle anymore. Now after b takes c3, b takes c3, knight e5, castle, bishop d7. I would still argue that the white position is unpleasant, even though he's a pawn up, because his pawn structure in front of the king is weak and the king is weak. So I would rather prefer black, but objectively speaking, this is about equal. So knight b1, queen h4 check, king f1, and now very strong knight e5, just keeping the knight on h5, offering the knight. And this is indeed just absolutely strong. And it's simply the white pieces are not working together. I mean, you can look at the knight and the rook here. The knight is not able to come out right now because the bishop is blocking it. And it's just, all the white pieces are pretty much awkward. So this allows black to sacrifice a piece. So didn't take it. But if he did, he would have also endured a very dangerous attack after f5, trying to open up the f-file. Of course, white cannot allow f takes e4. That would be just too much, so he has to do something, and I'll just want to show you some sample lines here. So let's see what happens after e takes f5. Bishop takes f5, now bishop e1, that makes sense to open up the square for on d2, queen e7, knight d2, and now a very strong move, thematic here, for black to bring this bishop back in the game, which is currently with the pawn on b4 is out of the game, but by playing b3, now aiming to exchange the defender of the pawn on f4. f3. So after knight takes b3, in fact, already black can take on f3. And here he's just crushing. Bishop, check, rook is coming, check. The rook is coming with a quiet move to e8, now threatening checkmate. And if white defends him by queen d3, then c4 is the final move, and white can resign because the queen is overloaded, cannot protect everything anymore, those 4 squares. So that's it. That's just one sample line. And I also looked at bishop e1 instead of e takes f5 at this point. But black actually has many ways to continue. Queen f6, queen e7, or queen takes h5, knight g3, queen g6. In all cases, just intuitively, I'm sure Aronian knew that he would have a really strong attack here. So that's why he went for that. Alright, so let's see what happened in the game. So played bishop e1, queen f6, and now he took an h5. But now the f3 pawn is dropping. Okay. So bishop f2, the knight cannot be taken because after queen takes f3 check, king g1, and otherwise the rook is falling, and then bishop h3 is simply game over with these two mate threats. So bishop f2, and now bishop g4. Threatening knight d4, winning the knight on e2. And here, so could have put up the most resistance by playing h3. He played queen c1 instead. Which makes sense, he's defending a pawn on b2. but h3 would have been a better try. Now bishop takes h5, and here actually, funny enough, white is able to allow knight d4. He has like a miraculous way out of here by playing e5. The point is that after queen takes e5, now the bishop is not pinned anymore, and bishop can take the knight on d4. Black is still better here, but white has improved considerably. Instead, also possible is for black to take with the pawn, but now the square on e4 has opened up for the knight, and white has also prevented immediate loss. Here, for example, knight 4g3, and the game continues. Black is better, no doubt, and in a practical game this is certainly very uncomfortable, but this is putting up the best fight. So after queen c1, Aronian still played knight d4, and that's also a very strong move. The point is that after knight takes d4, c takes d4, the c file opens up, and finally the rooks can join the action. And it's just game over. The black attack is simply too strong. The two bishops, the weak king, it's just too much. So played e5. So just to show you another sample line here after knight d2, now rook ac8. And whatever white does, for example knight c4, now d3, threatening d2, threatening also bishop b6. There are all kinds of ideas and positions suddenly. b3, bishop b6, just winning. And instead of knight c4 here, if the queen moves, let's say to e1, now b3 once again. This bishop is opening up, rook c2 coming. That's it. So tried e5, which is an interesting try, but it doesn't really change that much. The point is that now the square e4 is available for the knight. Rook ac8, queen b1, but still b3 once again. Very strong move. Now knight takes b3, and here this was the only other inaccuracy you could maybe call for Aronian. It would have been stronger to play d3 immediately, but really it doesn't change that much. It's just as in the other game, if you watch that between Aronian and Karana, Aronian also had several ways to win at the end, and really it only matters that you win, not how. So here after d3, now after knight takes a5, rook c2, queen e1, rook e2, the queen cannot, well, the queen is gone because otherwise the king is gone. So this is winning for black. And after queen takes d3, now bishop b6, queen d2, and now e4 very strong. Again, opening up more files for the black piece, especially the rooks. Let's say bishop takes e4, rook fe8, and it's just too much. Rook e1, let's say bishop h3 check, bishop g2 and queen f3, and white can resign. So let's see how the game continued. Bishop b6, a5, bishop a7. Now, of course, d3 is still a threat. So, I promise, that was the last time I say double so. So, Wesley played king g1. Saying too many so's in this video. Should really work on that. Was never aware of that before. Bishop f5, bishop e4, and then it's just over. Queen e1 would have still put up the most resistance, but really black is just crushing through here. There's no doubt about the black win. e4, just pushing the pawns, and I give you another sample line here. Rook d1, e3, bishop h4. Black can choose here, can even play g5. Like queen h6 seems to be more natural. Knight takes d4, and now rook c4. knight takes f5, e2 check, bishop f2, bishop takes f2 check, king takes f2. Now one check here, collect the rook and collect the knight, and we count the material and we see black is up, a healthy exchange, and the attack against the white king still continues. So that's it. Let's see how the game concluded. Bishop e4 was played. Now queen g5 check, king f1. If bishop g3, simply d3 check and collect the bishop on e4 in the next move. So king f1, now one more precise move, and that was it. Queen f4, nice finishing touch here, attacking the bishop on e4, as well as once again bringing this threat d3 into position. And at this point, so resigned because of the bishop takes f5, d3, queen e1, rook c2. He cannot protect the bishop on f2 anymore, and if the bishop is gone, the king is also gone, there's no doubt. So that was it. There was another, so it's too natural. Alright, that was a really powerful display by Aronian. Strong opening preparation, I would say. I believe he knew his stuff better than his opponent, and then he went for this very strong piece sacrifice and he executed perfectly. I mean, this is a really beautiful game by Aronian. Maybe even one of the best ones he has played in his career. I hope you guys enjoyed this game, and I would say I'll see you next time. Bye.